Session mixtape. Another ATN Genius Boy collaboration. Let's go. We dealing with hidden assassin, silent killers. Hidden assassin, silent killers. With hidden assassin, silent killers. Government sponsored, corporate funded drug dealers. With hidden assassin, silent killers. Hidden assassin, silent killers. With hidden assassin, silent killers. Government sponsored, corporate funded drug dealers. Wake up. Y'all better unplug from that matrix, man. Open your eyes. See the world for what it really is. You know what I'm saying? I'm Genius Boy Pete. Israel, stand up. Nazarene. Praise Yah for life. Praise Yah.
The conventional therapies for medulloblastoma is one of the true success stories of pediatric oncology in that it allows a curative potential in over 75% of patients that
May I interrupt you just real briefly? Because I saw some of the children that were cured by this treatment. I saw them. They were mentally retarded. They couldn't talk. They couldn't speak. The cancer supposedly was cured, but the child was a vegetable. Now, I'm not sure that that's what those parents envisioned when they went through the conventional treatment.
This is Thomas using alternative therapy, and this is Lim, conventional therapy, 2 months worth. Which would you choose? Who decides?
You have to admit that this is a cesspool. I mean, the FDA is not some pristine, beautiful palace where everything is crystal and everyone is spick and span. The only thing that people are allowed to see, they see a big sign, and the sign says, FDA, we defend the public health. And of all the lies that are perpetuated to the American public, that one's the biggest.
We have a serious problem in our whole federal government. It's tremendously important for the members of the Congress to be sure that they don't antagonize in any way the people who give them the money, because they need that money for their next campaign. So we have a government that is beholden primarily to the special interest money that they get from special interests and their lobbyists rather than the people of our country. And the industry that spends the most money on lobbying of any is the pharmaceutical industry. And it's money that pushes the whole system, so that it's the money that the pharmaceutical companies give in political contributions to members of Congress. And it is the movement of people from the pharmaceutical industry to the FDA and back and forth, where it's the money that these people make that moves the system. So it's not the individuals, it's the system that corrupts the whole thing.
Our home was in Tucson, and when Donna and I made the decision that there was going to be no radiation or chemo used on Thomas, the doctor decided to start hounding us. As a result, he told our attorney that because we had chosen not to speak to him directly and not to go with conventional therapy, that it left him no choice but to file charges against us with Child Protective Services for medical neglect, child abuse, and child neglect, which he did. It is the consent form to do radiation that we did at the University Medical Center. And when we initially did it, the doctor filled everything out, and then he went on to explain that possible side effects would be hair loss, skin redness, fatigue, nausea, vomiting, and loose BMs. And that's where he stopped. He said, go ahead and sign it. And I thought, well, gosh, if that's all we're dealing with, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. So I had signed it, and he left the room. About 10 minutes later, he came back and said, oh, by the way, Dad, I forgot. And he took it out of my hand and put it with the others and put the carbons back. He says, He'll also have fluid in the middle ear, hearing loss, hypothyroidism, spinal growth deficit, possible loss of IQ, memory loss, secondary tumors, hypopituitarism, low levels of hormones, and radiation necrosis, which is where the brain turns hard. And that's when I knew we were in trouble.
If your child was dying of cancer, wouldn't you want the best treatment available?
I want to know why my husband was put through 6 cycles of chemotherapy, and we were told up front it probably would have no effect.
The biggest cover-up in the cancer industry is that the industry is based on wealth, not health.
In this matter of life and death, some say the federal government is making matters worse, much worse.
And here you are pleading for the life of a person, and they're talking about the integrity of their bureaucratic process.
The couple's battle for alternative treatment is at the center of a national debate over medical freedom of choice.
These guys are part of a club, and believe me, that club has nothing to do with protecting the American people.
Why are people terrified when they hear the word cancer? Because they know it doesn't work. They know that what we're doing in this country and in the Western world doesn't work.
Since the war on cancer began in 1971, more than 14,800,000 Americans have died from some form of the disease. 1,500 die every day. That's 565,000 men, women, and children in 2009 alone. More people will die from cancer in this country in the next 3 years than all the American soldiers who died fighting since the American Revolution.
From 1920 to the present time, we have made little or no progress in the treatment of adult cancers. So a person who gets prostate cancer or breast cancer today will live as long as a person who got it in 1920. No big change. With all the radiation therapy that we began in the 10s and 20s, combination chemotherapy in the 60s, immunotherapy that began in the 70s, PET scans, MRI scans, you name it, billions and billions and billions of research dollars that we've thrown into this whole area of cancer research and treatment, little or no significant progress in the treatment of adult cancers.
Nothing we've done in a century has substantially reduced the death rate of various cancers relative to the population density. We are a total failure.
Standard of care simply means we've used this for decades unopposed, and no one's opposed us because we've imprisoned them. And anyone that dares speak against us, we throw in jail.
And they will also threaten to take all your children away and then bargain with you and say, okay, we will give you back these other children if you just let us have this one and treat them. And what are you supposed to do as a parent?
We've had, since 1971, a very long period of time to see that the current methods of doing things are not working. Chemotherapy has long ago reached its limits. Surgery and radiation, although they become technically more refined, they only really work when you can get the tumor early and remove it. But the ancient Egyptians knew that.
Conventional medicine doesn't know how to treat cancer. They treat cancer at the symptoms of it. They don't treat the underlying condition of it. Doctors will look at the lump or the bump, and they say, there's the cancer. That's defined as the cancer. And so then they will treat the lump or the bump. They will do whatever they can to get it to go away. They will burn it away, they will cut it out, or they'll try to poison it. And if they can succeed in getting rid of that lump or bump, then they say, aha, we got rid of the cancer. With a person on chemotherapy, the idea is, well, we're going to kill the cancer cells just before we kill the patient. And if we can draw that fine line, then we're successful. So in my view, this is primitive medicine. I think someday people will look back at this period of history and they'll laugh at it, just the way we look back at the way they used to bleed patients.
When I was a drug chemist, one of my first jobs was to design a tamoxifen derivative. If anytime you have to design a derivative of an existing drug, that means there's something wrong with the drug. And what we found in the lab was that tamoxifen was actually causing cancer. The chemists that I was working with, my superiors, etc., just said, you know, it's $1 billion industry and tamoxifan's not coming off the market. And if we can design a safer derivative, great. But if we can't, tamoxifan's going to remain on the market.
Multiple studies in the 1990s show that while tamoxifen reduces the incidence of breast cancer, it more than doubles the occurrence of uterine cancer.
You have doctors spending 3 years learning how to do chemotherapy radiation. You have specialist radio-oncology. You have cancer surgeons. You have cancer oncology. So you have this entire industry built on the paradigm of purging the body. Even though we find that that doesn't work, that industry is not going to just pack up and go away.
Chemotherapy and radiation therapy are nonspecific. They kill anything in its way. The reason why people lose their hair, the reason why people get nauseated and vomit is because chemotherapy kills any actively dividing cell, so irrespective of normal or not.
And if you think of it, it's like going in and doing an air raid, dropping bombs on a village to get rid of a pocket of rebels that are housed in a small area.
The chemotherapies that it says right on there from the manufacturer has not been proven safe or effective for pediatric application. So my question is, if the guys that make it say, gosh, we don't know if it works and we don't know if it's safe, but we'll put you in prison if you don't do it, what's that all about? It's insane.
You're the American Cancer Society. Don't you want cancer to be prevented in America? Instead, they end up on the side of the government, arguing that the information should be censored, suppressed, never allowed to reach the American consumer. Well, that speaks volumes, I think. And then you have to ask yourself, who does the American Cancer Society represent? Well, the answer with all nonprofit organizations is defined by where their financial support comes from.
The American Cancer Society is one of the world's wealthiest nonprofit organizations. It has assets including land, cars, and cash totaling more than $2 billion. In order to finance this operation, the ACS has established a long history of partnerships with deep-pocketed corporations.
And what is the upshot of that? The upshot of that is it costs on average about $1.6 billion for a single drug to be approved in the United States. That game can only be played by the largest monopolies on earth. So if you invent a drug, you discover an agent that has therapeutic utility, and you're in the scientific community out there, you can largely kiss that drug goodbye.
We have an extraordinary story for you of a cancer doctor whose patients say he's performing miracles, but the government wants to close him down.
Throughout the century, promising cures and therapies are met harshly by the AMA, the FDA, and the ACS. Scientists, including the likes of Nobel laureates Linus Pauling and Otto Warburg, are considered traitorous and their work labeled as quackery.
Canadian research team has come up with DCA. They believe it's a cheap and simple drug that kills almost all cancers. You heard that right. The real story is, you can't have it. Not because it's unsafe, but because your blood's going to shoot out of your eyes, because it doesn't make any money.
And in the U.S., the FDA has shut down all sites selling the drug.
How do you take something that costs pennies a day and fit it into a system that at the end of the process is supposed to generate a drug that's going to make $2 or $4 billion a year for you? Can't be done.
In November 2001, 2 years after his diagnosis, the Navarros are told Thomas only has a few days left to live.
So then we had to make the decision to let him go. And it was very difficult. But he fought so hard. And so did we. And
his death certificate reads, respiratory arrest due to chronic toxicity of chemotherapy. That says it all.
yeah.
It says it all.